Are you guys ready for our leadership lesson for today? It's on what you tolerate is what you train. From what I gather, most leaders do not struggle with awareness. What they struggle with is what they're willing to do once they see some form of misalignment, right? Because leaders and you can feel when something is off. They can read the room. They can sense when a person, a pattern, or a system is no longer holding the truth. And still, many decide to stay in these environments without change, not because they don't know what's going on, but because acting on that knowing requires something deeper, right? It requires clarity, it requires courage, it requires a willingness to let go of what is familiar, and that can be hard. It also requires the willingness to stand in what you already know to be true, even when it's not yet collectively agreed upon. Here's what I've come to understand. Leadership is not just about performance, or it's not just about outcomes or metrics or results. It's about alignment. It's about building and sustaining healthy environments, right? Because every system, every team, every culture, every organization either reflects the truth or compensates for the absence of it. And I've seen what that compensation can look like. It can look like staying quiet in meetings because honesty brings about risk. It can look like watching reality be softened or reframed or redirected instead of actually being addressed. It can look like feeling the shift in rooms when truth gets a little too close to the surface. And it can look like people learning quickly what is safe to say and what is not safe to say. Not everything that looks functional is healthy. Not everything that feels familiar is aligned. And not every environment that works is built on truth. You see, some are held together by avoidance, by unspoken tension, by normalizing dysfunction and misalignment. And over time, that confusion becomes the culture. That tension becomes the strategy. And the distortion, it becomes invisible. And if you're paying close attention, you can feel it long before it's ever said out loud. And I'm here to tell you that that is not overthinking, that is discernment. But discernment alone doesn't change anything, and awareness doesn't protect you. At some point, leadership requires movement, okay? And before that, it often requires you to hold your ground. Because if you see a pattern and continue to accommodate it, if you feel the tension but keep explaining it away, if you recognize the misalignment but delay the decision, you're not protecting the system, you're reinforcing it, you're training it to continue. I've also learned what it feels like to choose differently, to say less in rooms where truth isn't held responsibly, meaning what I shared was later filtered and used without honesty or context. I know what it feels like to step back from environments that require self-abandonment to belong. I know what it feels like to stop over-explaining what's already been clear. And I know what it feels like to walk away from environments that are no longer mutual and reward distortion. Not as a reaction, but as a responsibility to myself and those that I lead. You see, strong leadership isn't just about emotional intelligence or pattern recognition or strategic thinking. It's the ability to act when something no longer holds the truth, without needing external validation or confirmation. Because here's the truth, some things do not need more time, they need a decision. And when truth is honored, clarity replaces noise. Trust becomes structural and not situational. As in, people don't have to question if it's safe to be honest depending on the room or the moment that they're in. And people no longer have to guess what is real. That's where leadership shifts, not from control, but from creation. Because the real work isn't just fixing what's broken. It's building environments where truth can exist without consequences. It's Alignment, it's building environments where alignment is reinforced and not negotiated, where the mission leads, not the politics, where people don't have to abandon themselves to belong, where individuals are not confined to roles they are forced to stay inside. That's not idealism or wishful thinking. That is design. That is intentional, repeatable, and it can be built into the system. And it requires something that most leaders overlook. It requires the willingness to act when something no longer aligns, even when it would be easier to do otherwise. Because every time that you set a clear boundary, every time that you walk away from distortion or you choose integrity over convenience, you're not just making a decision, okay? You're raising the standard of what becomes possible. You're creating conditions where something bigger and higher can exist. And over time, that is how environments change, not all at once, but through leaders who are willing to hold a different line. Leadership isn't just about what you build. It's about what you make possible for other people to live inside of. Because in the end, what you tolerate doesn't stay contained. It gets repeated, it gets reinforced, and it becomes the standard, whether that is intentional or not. So as you can see, what you tolerate is what you train. There is your leadership lesson for today. And it gives you something to think about.